Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World release. This time we've got ourselves a Hammond collection release with the Jurassic World Dominion Pyroraptor. This is one we've been looking forward to for quite some time, especially when it comes to the previous not so great entries into the Mattel line for the Pyroraptor. This is far and away looking to be the best one so far, and you can see the window area here for the front of the box. You can also see a nice shot here of the figure, the species name, and then of course Hammond collection up there at the top. Over here on the side you can see again the Pyroraptor, and you can also see that the packaging is actually in Japanese, and that's because I had this sent to me kindly by Rod's Random Work, who actually sent it to Siratech, who then forwarded it to me. So a massive thank you goes out to all of those people, and I now get to have one of these in a Japanese style packaging, and you'll continue to see that here on the back. And again, that is definitely really cool, especially when it comes to a collectability standpoint. But here on the back you can see a nice image of the Pyroraptor up here on the top and then down here, and then you can also see again some images down here of some of the other figures that are out in the Hammond collection currently, all of which I have reviewed except for Delta, which will be up here very soon. So let's pop the box open and check it out. So here is our Pyroraptor now out of the packaging. And look at that, the feet are all messed up and everything, and all I did was let it go and it still stood. That's pretty impressive, I think. The tail is actually not touching, the feathers on the arms are not touching or anything like that, so pretty impressive on the part of Mattel as far as that goes. But honestly, out of the packaging it looks really nice. I can see the head sculpt, it does still look a little bit off to me. I'm not really sure exactly what it is about that head sculpt, but it doesn't look picture perfect. But overall, it's a massive upgrade compared to the older Pyroraptors we've had from Mattel. So let's jump to a closer look and check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Pyroraptor, you can see for the most part it looks pretty nice. And another thing that is nice, the glass eyes I think look a little bit better on this one. I don't know how good it's picking up on camera. It almost seems like it's looking dark when I look at it through the screen of the camera, but here in person I can see the eye a little nicer than previous versions of Hammond collection figures, which is a plus. The feather detail on the face looks really nice, and it's also extremely crisp, and I love the fact that we actually have a little variation of color here in the face, because you have a dark, like a dark gray or a black, that's like the primary color of the lower half of the Pyroraptor, but here in the face there's like a variation of brown that kind of runs through the eye socket and up into the snout toward the nostrils, but it does seem to end right before the nostrils. And of course you can see the nostrils themselves sculpted out. The skin texture of the face looks pretty decent. There you can definitely see the glass eye looking a bit nicer. We can also see the teeth here for the Pyroraptor. They look okay. Definitely not the greatest teeth in the world, but they're not terrible. They just look a little, I guess you could say a little generic, but they're not bad. We, of course, have an articulated jaw, and then once we open the mouth, you can see the teeth on the inside of the mouth on the lower jaw look pretty nice. You can also see, again, that we have a pinkish tone in here for the tongue. The tongue itself is sculpted pretty nicely. You've got the pinkish tone on the inside of the mouth on the upper side as well, so it's nice to see the entire inside of the mouth fully painted. The teeth have kind of like a light yellowish tone, or like an off-white for the color, but it also does have a little bit of a satin shine, which I feel like you can really see right there, which is definitely a really nice touch, and that jaw works perfectly. Moving up here into the top of the head, you do see the dark, black or gray tones moving here along the head, but then the red starts to pick up as we lead back into these feathers on the back of the head, and then you have that impressive kind of crest of feathering back here on the back of the head of the Pyroraptor. And I will say the feathers actually look excellent on this. Like, there's even some really nice, very fine detail to the feathers themselves, which you can see there, which is pretty darn impressive. As you continue to move down, you see the feathers, of course, take over the lower jaw here, and of course the entire neck. You can see much finer feathering as you lead down into those dark gray areas. As you continue to lead down, you do also have articulation right here. You can see you've got a nice little swivel, and that can also go up and down. And of course this area here also articulates, so it's all going to move together. And look at that, you can really get some very nice posability for the Pyroraptor. Like, it can look completely straight up pretty much, and that's about as far down as it goes. So the downward still I think could have a little improvement, but for the most part that is some super smooth articulation. What's going on here with the colors? It looks like the paint doesn't match up perfectly. So, yeah, no, it does. Okay, I just didn't have it in a good spot. But again, it seems to work really nicely as far as the articulation goes. You can get it completely looking over here to its left and to its right, so really smooth articulation. But as you move down into the body, you can see again the feathers start to pick up in size a little bit, especially as you lead here into the side of the stomach. But you'll also see that there's a dry brushing that's been applied to the upper side of the Pyroraptor. You have a black or a dark gray that's been dry brushed over the top here, adding just a little extra variation of color and also highlighting the feathers a bit nicer. Moving down into the arm, you can see some muscle definition and some more fine feathers. You can also see more plumage here sticking off of the back of the arm with a grayish tone. There is kind of a little awkward separation here in the elbow where it doesn't look so smooth or honestly all that great. Definitely a bit strange, but that's not uncommon when it comes to articulated figures like this, especially like, super articulated figures usually do have some slightly awkward looking joints, but I feel like there could have possibly been a better way to do that. I'm just not really sure how. But of course you do have articulation forward and back for the arm. It can also come out away from the body, swivel completely around if you choose to. And then you, of course, have the elbow articulation right here, which can also swivel. So some nice mobility there as well. The feather detail looks absolutely phenomenal as you move down here into the arms. Look at how nice that feather detail looks. And it's also a really smooth transition from the red to the grays, which I also really quite like. Mattel definitely did a great job on the fine detail of the sculpt of this. And this is that one area where the standard Pyroraptors from Mattel were always lacking, but they definitely made up for it on this version. You can see the fingers here leading out. You've got some scoots running down the fingers. You can also see the nails are painted with a black, which is very nice to see. White. So all the nails on the hands except for one are painted for some reason. That's really, really weird. For some reason, one nail, I guess they just chose not to paint. So, okay, I'm not really sure how to take that. That's definitely some laziness right there, but I guess at least they got 2 of the 3, so 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as they say. But you can see the underside also has the reddish tones, no variation of color for the undersides of the arms. But as you move back into the stomach, again, you can see finer feathering as you lead down further into the darker areas. You can also see a little extra kind of fluffier feathering moving along the center of the chest toward the stomach, but tapering off as you lead into like the groin area. As you move back, you've also got some extra kind of like impressively sized feathering there, kind of picking up and sticking off of the spinal column. As you move down into the thigh, you see more feathering. Again, I love how erratic the feathers look like. They're just kind of sticking up here and there. They don't look picture perfect and uniform, which I really do like. We do also, of course, have articulation forward and back in the legs, also out away from the body, which you can see right there. As you move down, you've got the knee sculpted out right there. You've also got the calf muscle. You again are returning to skin texture the further down you go. We should still have a little bit of feathering, I think, at this point. Very fine feathering leading into the skin texture, of course, of the leg down into the foot. But of course, we also have articulation here in the knee, which you can see forward and back. Really, really nice. Like, you can get some nice curvatures in that knee. And then, of course, you can also swivel. And then you have the ankle articulation, which you can swivel as well. And then go forward and back. So super impressive articulation on the figure as a whole. As you lead down into the feet, you can see you've got some nice scoots down the toes. You can also see that the feet are way more proportionate to the rest of the body compared to the older Hammond collection stuff. You can also see that the nails, actually, I don't know if they're painted, to be honest, because the color of the body is so dark at this point that I don't know that they really painted the nails because they really didn't need to. It just kind of looks like they're painted because it all is the same tone of color. We do have dew claws and stuff sculpted out, but I actually would have preferred they gave the nails a specific black coloration, like some black paint, because in, one way they really are unpainted, which is kind of strange. I guess they just get a pass, though, because it kind of looks like it's not unpainted because everything is so dark down there. But as you lead out into the tail, again, you've got one more area of articulation right here, which can go left, right, up, down, and also swivel. But then, of course, as you lead out into the tail, you do have a wire tail, so you can now bend it and display it any way you would really like, which is a huge plus for the Hammond collection. But you can also see, again, we have a little more of that dry brushing leading out. It does disappear as you lead out further into the tail, and then you have an absolutely phenomenal display of plumage here at the end of the tail, again with that gray tone returning, but a much lighter gray at this point as you lead out toward those tail feathers. It does have a little bit of a satin shine, which I don't know how I feel about entirely. Kind of, I think, maybe gives it the look of like a little iridescence with a little shininess to it, but at the same time, it doesn't really give you that iridescent sort of look. So maybe not at the same time that it does kind of give you that look, it kind of doesn't. But again, it does have a shininess, a nice satin look, I guess, to the end of the tail. But the tail sculpt and everything does look really good. And then, of course, you have the darker grays here for the underside of the Pyroraptor. And when you look at it from one side to the other, of course, it's going to look pretty much the same. I mean, there's not really much that would look different on a fully articulated figure like this from one side to the other. But I will say, even if there are some iffy areas on this figure, it is still a massive, massive improvement over the older Pyroraptors from Mattel. As far as a size goes, for a length, you were looking at about 8 inches, maybe 8 1/4 actually, approaching 8 1/4, or around 20 1/2, maybe heading toward 21 centimeters, roughly in that area. Height-wise, in the position it's currently in, a little over 3 inches, or pretty much 8 centimeters on the dot. But of course, when it comes to the height, you could alter it as much as you want by making the Pyroraptor stand a lot taller. So for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day human being next to our Pyroraptor from Mattel's Hammond collection. And you can see it's pretty much the exact size range you would think it would be, especially if you are familiar with the Hammond collection figures and the Raptors specifically. You're definitely going to have a very good idea of the size of this one. So for another comparison to further show you that, here is my custom version of the Jurassic Park 1 Velociraptor from Mattel. So you can see, again, pretty much the exact same size here between these two different Raptors. Definitely no difference as far as the size. I would say the Pyroraptor and Velociraptors are pretty much the exact same size. And just in case you wanted a few other Hammond collection comparisons, we also have the Dilophosaurus here, which you can see is maybe just slightly larger than the Pyroraptor. And then we've also got the Dimetrodon for one final Hammond collection comparison next to our Pyroraptor, which again, pretty similar in size. And just in case you don't have any Hammond collection Velociraptors, here is a mainline Mattel Velociraptor, which you can see is actually a little bit bigger than the Pyroraptor. And then one final comparison, we have one of the old Mattel Pyroraptors next to the Hammond collection version. And as you can see, this is a massive upgrade in every single area. Like, the older ones now look ridiculous in comparison to the Hammond collection version. So absolutely have to give Mattel a round of applause for such a drastic improvement from their mainline version to their Hammond collection version. Even if the Hammond collection version isn't absolutely picture perfect, it is still a huge, huge improvement over any previous Pyroraptor that they've released. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Dominion Hammond collection Pyroraptor is another awesome figure from this line, and another one that I'm so psyched to finally have in my hands and in my collection. One, honestly, probably one of my most anticipated for any Hammond collection figure coming out, because I really do love the Dominion Pyroraptor. There's just something so fun about it, and also the fact that, you know, it's a fully feathered raptor in the Jurassic franchise. That's not something that we've ever seen before, so it's crazy cool to see it now in the Hammond collection as well. And I think, again, overall, they did a really good job on this. For the most part, I think the sculpt looks pretty much as it does from the film. Like, they did a very good job, especially on the feathering and stuff. The feather detail is extremely crisp and super impressive, especially in some areas like when you look out on the arm and the plumage that you have out there. It is crazy impressive how much fine detail they've included, even the crest of feathers up there on the top of the head. They've done a good job of applying the paintwork as well. You know, as we've got the red tone, you've got the gray tone, but then you also have varying grays as you move through the body, like a little bit of a different shade of gray as you lead out into the feathers of the arms, but then you've got a lighter gray as you lead out into the tail feathers. You've also got some brown browns in the face. I am a little sad that we don't have nail paint for all of the nails. Like, even though it looks like it's painted on the feet, there isn't actually any nail paint that I can see. And also the one finger on each hand is missing paintwork for some strange, crazy reason. But other than that, I think the paintwork looks quite nice. I also don't really like the satin shine of the tail, but that's not the end of the world. That's just a minor nitpick. But I do appreciate the fact that they've even applied like some dry brushing and stuff in some areas. I think the glass eye looks a lot nicer on this one than it has on some of the other figures. Still not picture perfect, but definitely getting closer for sure. But also the articulation is incredibly smooth. It works perfectly on this figure. I don't have any issues so far that I can tell. I did hear of a few people saying they were having some, quality control issues with the Pyroraptors they acquired, but so far mine seems really nice. I'm not a huge fan of the awkward joint of the elbow and the way that the feathers disconnect and stuff. I think that looks a little bit strange, but again, just a little bit of a minor nitpick as far as that goes. But overall, definitely a figure worth picking up, and probably one of the best versions of these smaller Hammond collection figures that we have seen so far. So if you are interested, I will include a link in the description to where you can actually purchase this now on Target.com. So make sure you check that link, go grab this from Target, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.